Everyone. We are live on a Friday night. Thank you for joining us at FishEZ. Tonight's program includes, well, shall I say it? Improved sound. Let me get the headphones in. There we go. Hopefully the sound is better at this point. You're looking at my culture of daphnia. It's been a very interesting educational process just watching this daphnia grow from green water to, I almost want to say yellowish water, and then the yellowish water turns clear, but at that point it may be too late. So I usually do a harvest from each one of these at a certain point when the water turns what seems to be going on the clear side. I also look for something very specific. And what you're seeing here is this is daphnia that's large. And for a while I only had the large daphnia in this particular jar. And then when I start to see the small babies starting to come up in size big enough to be seen, that's when I know the culture is going through its cycle and is ready to be fed again so that the younger ones can actually grow. I use a two different net system. These are the two nets. One has bigger openings. I take the daphnia culture and first take about 2 liters, and I will, maybe even 4 liters, and I will go ahead and strain it out and grab all the big ones into this net. Then the remaining solution, which all the little ones went through, I will go ahead and pull them out. I don't want the water because at this point the water is going rancid. That's not a really good word, but it's going to be probably full of a lot of things that it was an issue. So this water needs to be refreshed. So it's like doing a water change in your tank. You need to do a water change in your daphnia culture. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take out the water and give them some fresh water, and it's going to be rich with green water. We have our green water culture looking pretty nice up here. And when I see that it's probably not visible on the camera, but it is visible to the naked eye. Okay, yes, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can't see it, but when I see that this dark color, it's about this dark green, that's when I know that the water is perfect, ready to be harvested. And then, of course, taking out the water, putting it into the daphnia culture and leaving about a liter, 2 liters maximum of water, and then refilling it with clean water, it will turn lighter in green. And then that's what I'll use to grow more green water. Okay, so we know about that, right? And so you can see the difference in that green and this green. This green is now turned more on the yellow side. I think in concept, I'm learning how to do these jars. These, what is this? This is 2 liters, 4 liters. So it's at least 5 liters. It's over a gallon. And maybe a gallon and a half. This is actually a vase you can get from a local store. And I'm talking about a dollar store type of place. And they're just like glass cylinders. But I think they're used for vases, but they got a wide mouth open. I cover it just to keep the humidity down. I try to cover everything, but I can. But when I take out the water, these are 2 liter marks, so I can see as I'm draining it, I can see how much I want to do, because I put one of these 2 liter tubbies in the sink, and I just start filling it with the net on the top. So I just filter out the net with the net. So we'll put the net right on top like this. And when I'm filtering it out, all the daphnia will be caught here. And then when I pull this one out, this will just be groundwater, and I can dump it. But I want to catch all the daphnia first. Then I can put it either back into the green water, if that's what my goal is to not harvest so much, or I might take half of them and pour it back into there. And then the other half I'll feed to my breeder fish. So we've got some breeder fish up here. This is a pair of Inca 50. Let's see if we can get a better shot. This is the female, a pair of Inca 50s. And we got a pair of red gold Hogsloi. The female is yellow. We got a pair of triple reds. There's the female. The male's back there. He's very attractive pair, this one. And then I have Trifasciata. There's a male, the most beautiful male. He's all blue. And anyway, that's what I would typically feed this calcium-rich food, live food, with. I don't feed it just general population because I'm just growing fish. I don't have enough. If I had a wall of about 10 or 7 of these jars every day, I could probably take a jar and harvest it and then have that much every day. Growing your own food is really actually cheap, because the only thing raising daphnia cost me is the fertilizer. And the fertilizer is for the green water. So liquid fertilizer, and I'm just using 3 squirts in there. So taking 3 squirts every time I harvest, and then this will replenish itself in 4 days. So every 4 days I can feed another. So I could every 4 days, technically, using that 2.5 gallon, but I could always set up another 2.5 gallon and do more green water, right? So actually, it's not as difficult as that, because when I harvest the green water from the 2.5 gallon, I'm looking at, I'll get 4 2-liter bottles of green water to use. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So each time, every 4 days, I can actually handle 2 of these. So that's the concept. It's really great. So everybody's joining us tonight. Thank you very much for joining. Ron, I'm glad that you are joined up. I have not sent your order out yet, and I'm sorry about that. But I had some prior commitments for today, and so it'll probably go out Monday. I'll work on that Monday, so just to give you an update. And it looks like we have Ichthys Aquatics, Red Laser, Sandy, Craig's Catfish. Boy, everybody's joining tonight. It's great. Hit the thumbs up. Maybe more people will join us. I wanted to talk about some very special things tonight. Not necessarily the daphnia, but I wanted to show you how the daphnia looks when you're ready to harvest it. It really works well. Now what I'll do is probably harvest half of the large ones, throw some of them back because they're going to be, the large ones will produce a lot of babies. And all the small ones, you can see the small ones. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. You see in amongst the large ones, there's some little tiny ones right here. See? Those tiny ones need to grow. And so they'll be collected in the next harvest. By the time the green water clears after replacing this much green water with green water, I'm going to have all the adults again. Hi, Robert. So this week there's been a lot of changes in the fish room. This is the nursery, of course, So we've got some baby angels. I think we had those last time. Shady Grady is joining us. Wow. Everybody's on board. Now, these we got this week. These are German blue rams, GBRs. They're looking very well. We're feeding them paramecia so far. They haven't eaten anything else, just paramecia. The water is staying pretty clean. It's not clouding up, and this is good. Tonight, I'm going to talk about one of the most difficult things for breeding rams, and that's the black rams. And before I go, here's the male. He showed up. I told you he was gorgeous. Look at him. Metapistogramma agassizii, triple red. He's really nice looking. He's camera shy though. Huh. Imagine that. Our little blue guy over here is peeking his head. Sometimes that bar across his body disappears. He's just solid blue, like electric blue ram. It just changes. I want to talk about something we received this week, and that's not just the German blues, but we got some black rams, a batch. More angels over here. These angels just got put into a breeder box. This was a surprise spawn. It's not really huge. It's rather small, but it was in a community tank. We took them off the wall after they hatched. Let's get over here. Let's get straight to the subject at hand. Everybody's on board. This is a specially designed contraption. Now I say especially designed because when breeding black rams have a tendency to do a number of things, and one of the problems that we have with black rams is they're exceptionally small when they hatch. Not like those German blues, but they also do something else, and that is they come up to the surface and they love to get into the crevice between. It's where the adhesion forms right at the surface. If you can see that, they ball up. I don't know why they do that, but when they're artificially raised, the parents usually are breaking them up, taking them down, keeping them together. They do a really good job with that. Back in the corner here, you can see they really ball up. But I know about these bad habits that black rams have. Another bad habit they have is right at the weir. If you have a weir that's like a sponge filter or sponge material, they will go for it, and they will just lock themselves inside the filter and get caught and die there. So in this particular case, what I have found is that I don't know if this is going to be successful. We're going to do our best. I am using, first of all, I'm using the tank water, and I'm going to take this as 6.1 pH, only 80 ppm. I measured today, 20th of December. And what I'm doing is I have all those bubbles are on the inside. That, by the way, that's for that filter right there. So I have a small amount of air being blown up. And one of the tricks, it's like a hack, is to put the air right under where they tend to get caught. So this is where they get caught in the material. So I've taken this sponge material, and what I'm doing is, you can see the bubbles coming up. Very light amount of bubbles, not crazy, but you can see they're coming up right at the sponge. And what that does is it kind of knocks them away. It says to the fish, you're not allowed to be here. And so they may try all they want, but it keeps them away. The other thing is, I had it here, and it's locked into the breeder box, but you see there's space here because When I had it here up against the wall, if I let the tube touch the wall, adhesion pulls up on the, because of the adhesion on the tube also pulls this way up, and I was finding a bunch of fry were getting caught up. They just love to jump out of the water. So you see them all balling up there. And that's no good. Now, after a few days of eating, they tend to come down and start looking for food at the bottom. But what do you feed these things? Because they're exceptionally small. Those German blues we looked at are much larger. I fed them paramecia so far, and after a day or two, they've grown. And I can almost put them onto baby brine shrimp. Thank you, Carla, for joining us tonight. So what I'm going to do is I had the bubbler coming maybe very slow, but it was causing large bubbles. I'm going to demonstrate what I meant by that. I'm going to turn it on, this valve. Now watch what happens when we bubble. See those big bubbles that sort of rise? I mean, there's little bubbles, but notice the big bubbles? I'm going to make it real slow, because I just want it really slow, just drops. But you notice there were some bubbles. Got to be very careful, because when the bubbles start forming, they were pushing up. There it is. See, look, we got fry up on the wall. We got caught out. No, these are just drops right now. These are not fry. Okay. But that's what was happening. They were caught up because they were pushed up along the wall. And so that's a problem. Now I like this amount, drop, 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 without any bubbles forming. So you have to be so careful about every little thing when you're dealing with black rams. If we get what's alive in here to grow, we're going to at least have 100 black ram fry. But normally speaking, it's so hard to feed them. But what I've done is, we've got a new secret hack. I'm going to reveal that hack right now. You all ready? You heard it here first. So after the paramecia, which is for a day or two, they've grown a little bit, and I'm able to feed them baby brine shrimp, but not any old baby brine shrimp. We use this device. Now, I featured this on another video. I don't know if any of you have actually watched that video. It's interesting. It is one of the baby brine shrimp hatchers that is very unique. It's not like any other you've ever seen. It doesn't use air. It just lets the shrimp hatch out into the salt water. All I do is I pour 1 liter of water into the basin. I put in 2 tablespoons of salt, and I don't mix it. I just pour it in, because eventually it will dissolve in the 1 liter. So once it dissolves, the salt is there, the water, and it has a center sieve, or sieve, I guess you'd say. And all I do is I pull it out. I'll give you an example. I've already fed the black rams. And there it is. I just pull it up out of the center, because is there anything in there? Let's see if I can spot it. Yeah, see? You can see. There you go. All those. Those have just hatched, because I harvest this every few hours. But the trick is, these baby brine shrimp are just hatched. They're so just hatched. It's like ridiculously small. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. There, I just put some in. Okay. But I saw a ram in there. I had to get it out. Okay, so here, I just took half of them, put them in here. You see on the back wall? Baby brine shrimp, super small. These are super small shrimp. Let's go over and feed the German blue rams the remainder. And all I'm going to do is, in this case, let's pull out our 2-liter jar. I don't even, and I'm going to just rinse it and give them some baby brine shrimp. But the difference is this baby brine shrimp is not the regular baby brine shrimp that I use every day. This is San Francisco brand, or shall we say San Francisco type baby brine shrimp. So these baby brine shrimp that are hatched in these things, they come out too big. When they're hatched, they're too big. But I have some eggs here. I don't have the bottle, but these are the eggs of the San Francisco. I actually sell this on the website aquarium.biz, and what I'm doing is giving you some quality stuff, because this has not been sitting around. I have a bunch of bottles. For example, these bottles have brine shrimp eggs. None of them will hatch. Less than 0.5% of the eggs will hatch, because these were sitting around. They weren't properly taken care of. I got these for free because they were expired. I'm going to dump those out. I'm putting in the special eggs because I got this from the United States. It is San Francisco style baby brine shrimp, and the eggs themselves are super small. Just to compare, you're looking at the eggs of the super tiny ones. There are various types. Let me look. Now these are the eggs of the regular baby brine shrimp that I hatch. So you get an idea. You can see how much bigger these are. These are so much more bigger. And when they hatch, even newly hatched, they're big. Too big for the black rams. But this stuff, whoops, I dropped it. This stuff is way smaller, and I want it that it just hatches, right? So this device, last night I put the eggs in, and within 24 hours they're hatching. So I can just keep taking the eggs out. In fact, the sieve is gone. I'm going to come over here, see where I left it. Okay. We harvested it. There's nothing left. So let's put that back in there, and we'll put it back into the center. That's where all the light's going, and that's where the shrimp are attracted to, the center of this thing. Okay, there we go. If you want to know where to get these devices, just go to my videos, and I did a complete video on this particular apparatus. So now it just sits back in the center, and when I lift it up again, it's going to collect all the baby brine shrimp that have come to the light. So what happens is there's a baffle inside here. I put the eggs on the outside, so they're all poured. I just pour eggs on the outside. This is the lid on, but when the lid is off, I pour the eggs on the outside, and then when they hatch, they just start migrating to the center. So immediately, I put in probably less than 1/8 of a teaspoon, not much. And then after this starts to wane, I can put in another 1/8 of a teaspoon, and as it starts to wane, without having to change the water. So I go through 2 cycles, and then eventually I just clean it all out, start fresh with a new liter of water and a 2 tablespoons. But this is the method I'm getting the small. So let's just take a look what I just put in there. You see them attached to the back there, and what I like about it is they're also attracted to the light, and that's what the rams are doing. And I was looking very closely tonight, and I see that the black rams even though they're at the top, they're in the corners and everything, I'm looking closely at their bellies, and I'm seeing that they are, oh shoot, if you can see them in the crevice here. No, it's not this, I have cameras, there we go. You can see them zipping around there. They're at the location where the baby brine shrimp go to. Now I only have to do this for a number of these fry start to descend back into the bottom section. I don't know why, but when they first go free swimming, they have a tendency to go to the top and get caught up in the adhesion. Adhesion is when the forces of the water or liquid start to climb up the surface of the container, and they form a small crevice, and the fish can actually reside there without any effort whatsoever. It doesn't take them a lot of effort to stay up in this corner. Now sometimes they die up in here, and I've had cases where the entire group died off, and I think it's because they never found the food. They have to find the food, and that's the hack that's so important. So right now I've got this tube hanging away from the wall so it doesn't cause more adhesion, and yet, as you can see, I'm holding it with a pin, and I'm holding the air so that it stays away from the wall. It's kind of like locked in, braced against this input, and comes down below, and what you're looking at is the air. Better to see it this way. The air inside is just a small trickle amount of water. It's not a lot of air. It's deceiving because you got to look this way. You see how it's very fine bubbles, and that's shooting at the weir to keep them away from the weir. And this is a pretty good shot. You can see them all up at the surface moving about. Also, the baby brine shrimp tend to come to the top also, only because if there's light up there. They're going towards the light, which is kind of above, right? So it gives you an idea. So I'm drawing the baby brine shrimp up to the small fry, and I looked at the bellies earlier tonight, just before we went live, and I could see that they're eating them. And so I'm very happy with this success. So we're going to see the first few days, actually the first week of a batch of black rams is super labor intensive. We're just watching them so closely, and we're intrigued by all the little problems that could come up, and we're going to make sure that they do well. Thank you for the thumbs up, and everybody for joining us tonight. We're just doing a quick live stream on this Friday night because we can do it and we can share information that's helpful. I wanted to say something about this tank. Last week, as you know, we talked about how well we did with the breeding projects in these tanks. These are albino cherry barbs, and our round robin method proved very successful with them. We only have 2 males, and we used them both, and we did them in a total of 4 days, 2 days with one male, 2 days with another male, and we got a lot of fry, so a good number. Over here we did the same thing with the checker barbs, and down in the lower section you'll see checker barbs. I moved over the rosy barbs from the batch because there was only a few of them, and you can see the rosy barbs tend to swim in the upper section. They're easy to tell apart. They're not even close. The rosy barbs are bigger, they're growing faster, and the checker barbs are a smaller fish. So here's a rosy barb. You can tell it has a dot at the tail and the eyeball, making it look like a 2-dot fish. But when you look closely at a checker barb fry, you'll see it has like 4 or 5 dots. You can't really see it from a distance like this. Let's see if I can zoom in. There you go. See the very dots? 1, 2, 3, 4 dots, including the eyeball. So you see it's like speckled. It's like, but they're smaller. It's a smaller species, so the checker barbs won't grow as fast because they're not need to grow as big. Now, what we found out was we had a nice large batch of tetras here in this tank, and I'm going to tell you something that happened. There were a lot of tetras, and they all seemed to die off. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know if it's the temperature. I don't know if it's the light, too much light. There's a lot of reasons that can happen, right? Right now I'm checking the pH with this meter, and it says 6.2. We're looking at 6.2 in this water, and it is 40 ppm. Okay, so what I did was I said, let's take those 2 fry out, and I did. I put a breeder box over here. I put them in the breeder box, and the next morning they were gone. So I assume they went into this tank. So there could be 2 penguin tetras in this tank. Then I said, I'm going to use this tank since I saved the 2, and I'm going to breed some Odessa barbs. So I tried putting together a pair. I just threw them in there. I changed the water first, but I threw them in there. I threw in a pair of Odessa barbs, and I had the grill on the bottom and everything. And I said, let's see if I can get some Odessas breeding. And then it was so funny. After a day and a half, I pulled out the Odessa barbs, and wouldn't you know it, there's a bunch of fry in this tank. And I just couldn't find them. They were hidden. They were gone. You know, all those tetras disappeared. You're looking at one right now. You don't even see it. I'm telling you. Let me zoom in. I'll show you what I mean. That's a tetra. Doesn't even look like a fish. There it is. Can you see it? They were so hard to spot. And I was like feeding them to the Odessa barbs. I don't know how many they ate, actually, but they did have a place to hide. And that was under the grill. So I think the tetras mostly zipped away and got hidden down below, and they didn't come out. So with the big fish zooming about, I think they're smart enough to know that. But then I realized when I said, let me take them out. I started to take them out. I said, there's only a few in here. No, there's more than a few. So there's probably over a dozen of these secretive little fish that are hiding, maybe because they are afraid to get eaten. Not a surprise. And so in this tank, we'll go ahead and just let them get bigger. And that's what happened. My mistake. I didn't expect that. But I've never bred the penguin tetra before, so I didn't know the characteristics. For example, tiger barbs. They're out and about. Here are cherry barbs. They're out and about. A lot of barbs, after so many days, they're out and about. But in the case of tetras, they could very well be like the Hexazona barb. The Hexazona barb, which we have a good number. Here's some female. Here's a female right here. Yeah, see right there? Females are in this tank. And the males are over here. We got a couple of males. There's one right there. And there's one right there. They're striped. They look like tiger barbs almost. They're just not shaped like a tiger barb. So I have a few males in here. Those fish, I'm telling you, you can put them together and you'll never see a fry until they're so big that they can't avoid being seen. They stay so secluded, so hidden, and that's just part of their characteristics. And I'm going to mention that I'm very patient with them now. When I breed those fish, I don't worry about it. I just put them together and I wait. And I wait and I wait. And then sure enough, the fry start to appear. And then in the end, I had one time I didn't think there was a spawn. I ended up with 80 fish. Yeah, it was a good spawn. Wow. So tonight, thank you very much for joining. I'm going to take any questions. If anybody enjoys what they've seen so far tonight, it's just we're just looking at some hacks that we're doing, some of the progress and some of the issues that we have breeding black rams. And it looks like, yeah, we need some thumbs up. Thank you very much. That would always be, how much do you put in a time? How much do you put in a time? Let's see what's the context. Oh, you were asking about the small baby brine shrimp. I'm going to show you the amount. I'll show you how much I put in that thing because as you can see, they're going to continuously hatch, and I'm going to keep taking them out as they hatch, and they don't all hatch at once. So here it is. I take this little device which came. It says it's 1.7 cc's, so 1.7 cubic centimeters, and I use probably a third of it. That's about all I do. Yeah, about a third of one of these tiny little scoops, and you'll get a good batch, a continuous supply of the baby brine shrimp, the San Francisco style type. And so that's kind of playing with the different types of baby brine shrimp. If you can get a hold of those, if you're in the United States, order them from Brine Shrimp Direct, or you can get them from other places. I think there is a place in San Francisco you can get them from. I forget the name of it, but basically, if you're in Canada, you can order them. If you can't get them in Canada anywhere, then you can order them from me. I'll send you a couple of tablespoons, and you can see it doesn't take much. You know, a tiny bit goes a long ways, and it will last. It will get you. The growth on the fish are tremendous, and so I'm expecting these black rams to be able to eat the other baby brine shrimp, and I'll get them on that as soon as they're big enough, which will probably be in about 3 or 4 days. Within 3 or 4 days, right? So not bad. It's kind of good. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, okay, you use the small ones every day. Very good, Shady Grady. It's kind of nice, but I will say this. Using what's the reason why I don't just, use only that? Well, first of all, it's harder to get here in Canada. I have to get it and import it, and so I don't have a good source for it. So I've got it in the freezer, and it will last me one of those containers, large containers, a long time. But one of the things that's different about hatching the two different brine shrimp is that when you hatch the regular larger baby brine shrimp, and when I put it in the 2 liter bottle, and when I drain it after it sits for a few minutes, the shells go to the top, and then the baby brine shrimp goes and gets sucked out as you slowly drain it out of the 2 liter bottle. However, if you do the same method with the San Francisco style, the shells don't separate the same. And I have found that you're going to end up with a bunch of shells, and it's problematic because I'm throwing in a bunch of I hate to take my tanks and pollute them with a bunch of shells, which the fish can't eat. They spit it out. And I don't even know if it's good for them. It's probably unsafe because they could choke on a shell. I don't know. But at any rate, I don't like that. I don't like putting the shells. And it seems like the unhatched eggs, there's always lots of them. Now, what's the difference between that and this device right behind me? You see this black thing right there? That device works differently. I don't try to separate the shells because I'm not using the air. So Shady Grady, tell us, do you use one of these hobby hatchers, or do you use a regular system? And how do you separate these shells from the newly hatched baby brine shrimp? What I have found is in this thing, because the shells float and because they're on the outer perimeter, they're outside the baffle. The baffle means basically the the shrimp have to swim under, down, and go up, and then over and down. It's going towards the light. It goes up and down over. And so every time it goes down, it's going because the baffle is sticking out of the water. So it holds the shells on the outer perimeter. In other words, you saw me take this out. Right now, I'm going to take it out again. We just took it out a moment ago. I'm going to take it out again. Let's see how many we got. Huh. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. Look at it. Still, now we got another bunch of, these are the ones that have migrated to the center since I last pulled it out. So I can put those in there. So I'm going to go ahead and feed them in here. Yeah, put some more of the tiny ones. And now it's clean, and I'll just stick it in. So every hour, I can actually harvest some newly hatched. So I just did it. So the idea being that there wasn't a single shell in that particular harvest. Why? Because the only thing that could migrate from the outer perimeter are the shrimp. They have to swim up and down to get past the baffle into the center where the light is. So shells don't do that, and so they're trapped on the outer perimeter. So it's a perfect way of getting just pure shrimp. So I hope you enjoyed that thought, explaining why I do it that way. Zen Ginger's with us. Wow, okay, welcome. And Aquarium Fantasy. Your eggs aren't hatched fully. I have to do the brine for 48 hours. Yes. So, yes, I understand that. But still, you have to do the separation, right? Even after 48 hours. And what I found is that, remember, I want to mention this. That was something from RIMC. Now, when you're looking for the newly hatched ones, waiting 48 hours is like they start hatching at 24 hours. I want to catch them at 24 hours. I need the smallest ones to feed to my black rams. I need the smallest ones. I don't need the 48-hour ones because those have grown. Because they use the egg sac or the yolk or the nutrients that they have carried with them in the cyst, and they grow and they actually become larger after in 48 hours. So that's why I like this device for this particular application. Now, when I'm feeding my fish rim and I'm going from tank to tank to tank to tank, obviously I'm going to feed the baby brine shrimp that's the larger because it's the cheapest, and guess what? 98% of my fish room does well with that. They don't need the tiny, small, itty bitty, newly hatched San Francisco type. Just these guys. So I have this device for these guys. I have this device for newly hatched fish, and probably their first time eating baby brine shrimp, they're going to get that. It's just a small quantity, and that's all I need. But the rest of the room, they're going to get the cheaper, less expensive, larger baby brine shrimp, and they'll grow on that fine because they can eat it. So I hope that answers. So Shady Grady uses the light to attract it. You can do that to attract them to maybe a side where you can siphon. It's just too much work for me. This, as you can see, is no work. That's why I use it. And once you have this device, it's plastic. It's really good quality make. It'll last. Nobody sent the link to my video on this particular hatcher. I should have. I wasn't planning on talking about it in this depth, but they double in size every 20 hours. Yeah, so yeah, that's the problem. I don't want the larger ones. Look, these are the tiny ones. If I want the larger ones, I will hatch the larger ones to begin with. So I don't need to let them sit for 20 hours to double in size. Okay, is there a danger to adding the brine water to the fry? Well, that just kind of depends. I mean, the brine water is salty water, right? It's got a high amount of salt in it, concentration. It doesn't hurt to add some if you have to, put some in there, and it depends on the size of your tank. If I'm hatching, like for example, if we took this 5.5 gallon and we have a bunch of fry, and I'm talking hundreds, there's a lot of volume here, and I add the baby brine shrimp, I'm adding some salt. It might not hurt the fish to have a little bit of salt, a small amount. So that's what is mentioned here. A small amount of salt not going to hurt them. That's true. But what if in this case, I am dripping very slowly in this small contraption. What is this? It's less than 2 liters of water in this size breeder box. So by adding, if it wasn't, sometimes I'll give you an example. I'm going to show you a breeder box that I'm not dripping, and I'm going to explain to you why. Here we go. See the fry on the left? There's only 5 fry in here. I took these out of the Apistogramma tank. It's Apistogramma agassizi from pair number 1. Oh, thank you, Sandy. Oh, I appreciate that so much. So you can see this particular one, they came out of their tank, and I'm using the tank water that they have. There's no drippage in this one yet. So what I like to do is, for Apistogrammas, I like to keep them in the lower pH water. So they came out of their tank probably at close to 5.4, something like that. And I'm just bubbling it, but there's so few fry compared to like a tank of, well, not like this one. This one's super reds, a lot of them. But let's say I had this many fry, and in this case, I'm going to feed them a lot of baby brine shrimp, and I need to keep the water super clean. But this particular, I won't start dripping this one, and not for a little while. I want to keep the low pH water with them for a little longer, and then when I start to get to the point where they're doing well, I'll just start dripping them slowly, drip, 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 until they're going to be at tap water. Okay, so they're at, I don't know what the TDS is in right here. I didn't write it on here because I could have written it from the tank. Every tank has a number. Like for example, up there you see I've written, see in the white numbers, 5.4/40. So 5.2/40. So that pair of Apistogrammas is in 5.2 pH and 40 ppm. And that would be something similar to this water. I just want them to grow and establish themselves in this. I've already taken them out. I've siphoned them out as fry and put them in this breeder box, and that's a transition in which they're stressed. And I don't want to stress them out even more by changing the whole parameters of all the water into tap water without doing it super slowly. And I just give them a week or so growing as they become accustomed, and then I'll slowly go over. The condo system is looking good. There's my pleco condos, or also known as bioballs. Bioballs are very common, but did you know that they're actually condo? Those are pleco condos. They all have their own little spot, even on the outside. They just love the walls between their neighbors. They don't fight. Yeah, nice batch. We've got another batch coming over very soon. They laid again. The pair of plecos is super reds. It's very prolific. Okay. Well, it's been a great evening, and I don't want to belabor tonight, but I'm going to tell you something very sad. To conclude with, I want to tell you that I'm very, very distressed. Well, I'm very sad. I'm very sad. Sometimes your favorite fish, something goes wrong. And I know this has happened to all of you. And you have your favorite fish. You love your fish. It's the one you enjoy watching all the time. And frankly, you know that one of my favorite fish is the mascara barbs. Well, unfortunately, this is what I have been witnessing for the last 3 days. Okay, this is very sad because I don't know what the issue is, and I'm watching my group of mascara barbs, and one of them, it was a female that started to act, and there she goes. Something's not quite right with her. I've been changing the water constantly every day, giving a water change, a partial water change, thinking that maybe it's nitrates or whatever, high nitrates. I thought maybe that might be it. But she swims upside down. She swims on her side. Yeah, just that one fish. But I'm very sad. Since I've had these fish, they've been extremely well. None of them have been sick, except I did lose one when it jumped out of a crevice somehow, and then it ended up being a piece of jerky on the floor when I finally found it. I didn't even know I was missing it for the longest time. It was while I was away. But this one, I see that there's some, looks like some stress bars across the forehead, or the forehead area, as if the scales are missing. I have a feeling it got caught somewhere. It might have gotten, at the same time this heater was off the wall, the suction cups came off. I don't know if it was like caught behind there and damaged itself. I don't know if it jumped and hit the ceiling, because this is pretty much a closed system. This is a acrylic tank, and if it thought it could jump out and hit real hard, because they can jump, that could have happened. It could have knocked itself loony. I don't know. It could be an accident. But all I know is if it gets well, I'd be in shock. Because when I see a fish like this, the other fish, interestingly, know that there's a sick fish among them. And they rally behind it, and they stick with it. And I do see it. If it was air bladder related, or air bladder, do you mean, Zen Ginger, swim bladder? Air bladder, swim bladder, yeah, same thing, right? So if that were the case, I think it would be like, it does kind of turn over, but it was looking better this morning than it did last night, so I was a little hopeful. But it's very distressing for me, because it's like I don't want to lose it, but I don't know what to do for it. If it is swim bladder related, there's absolutely nothing I know of to fix it. Not without the stress. If someone were to say, "Oh, put it in, a very shallow amount of water," well, just catching that fish is going to stress it out. I mean, big time. These fish don't like to be caught. The only way I catch Dickensia genus fish is by lowering the water level to about half tank. about the only thing I know. I've been watching it to see how it could have hurt itself on its forehead and got that mark on its forehead, but I don't know. Anyway, that's the sad thing. I just wanted to share. I share also the sad parts to fish keeping. The rest of the group looks really great. They're doing very well. I don't know if you noticed, I've taken out a week ago or more. I've taken out all the other fish. I only have the Kinsey in here, and we're going to be setting up the breeding traps soon because I think that they're at the age where they might start showing color and start showing off and start breeding. If these were black spot barbs, definitely I would be breeding them by now. I don't think this particular species matures as early as black spot barbs or filamentosa, but this is the Apsara, so I don't know. Anyway, that's the sad thing, but I just wanted to share that with you. It's the sad part. You walk into your fish room, sometimes you find a fish that has died. You have no idea why. You have no idea why. What caused it? You don't know why. She might be dead in the morning. She might just be hanging in there. She does look full, but not like bloat. Okay, to give you answer that question, if she had like bloat. Well, when I see a fish that darts in strange directions and sort of jerky, 9 times out of 10, that's a sign of very high nitrates. So I started doing partial water changes, and I'm going to continue to do that. I didn't check the water for nitrates. I could have, but I knew they needed some water change anyway, so I just started doing it. So I'll make sure that the nitrates are really low. I don't want it to happen again to another fish because we started with, I think, 16. We lost the one. So that means we're going to be down to 14. It's plenty. There's plenty to breed from. That's why we have a few. It's Robert Lucas says, is prize fish going sideways, internal maladies and so poorly understood, it's possible to know what, if anything, can be done for them. I know. So it's super hard to diagnose something like that because she's already been in that tank acting this way for 3 days. It wasn't yesterday that I noticed, it was the day before yesterday. So this is the 3rd day that she's been doing this, and she's still hanging in there. They're very strong fish, so when I noticed it, I've had this conversation with Malik many times. When you get experienced people looking at a fish room, looking at a fish tank, honestly, it's amazing how I can look at something and say, there's something wrong, or that's not right, or that fish has a defect, or, immediately it becomes so second nature for us. But I have many times shown people, I give them a selection of 5 animals, and I would say, take your pick. And they'll take the one with the defect every time. I don't know why, but they'll take the one with the defect, and they don't realize that it has a defect. And I scratch my head sometimes and says, don't they realize that one's missing a fin, or that one's got a little, nodule on its fin, or something is just not right with that fish. But I'll see it right away because I have a trained eye. And maybe you too, after a while, you get to know your fish. Well, the other day, 2 days ago, I throw some food in there, and one of the fish was not acting like the rest. Just not acting. He wasn't doing this belly up thing. But I looked at her very closely. I said, she's not rushing after the food like everybody else. She's not with the program. And when I see one fish not with the program, I know something's up. So that's when I started to detect the issue and started making water changes, because I said, something's not right. And she's only gotten worse, but it is what it is. So maybe that's what you thought. Yours look like linebackers. What are you feeding yours? I don't try to overfeed my fish. In this particular case, especially because barbs have a tendency to become bloated if they eat too high a protein of a diet. So I do feed my fish the veggie pellets. Also, I feed them, um, mine are fed some grindle worms occasionally, not every day. Occasionally I'll throw in the grindle worms and they'll gobble those up, and also the freeze-dried worms. So they eat out of my hand. Do yours eat out of your hand? Yeah, so that's the sad thing, and they are my favorite fish. So I hate to see any of them go. I want to breed some this year, and we're going to do that. We're going to keep on working on it. We get very in tuned. Zen Ginger has spoken, and you are right. That's the case. Maybe I know their patterns as well, and sometimes they'll get skittish for some reason. When the lights first come on, they're very skittish. That is just the nature. They're very super. They're super schooling, and they're super skittish. Put a net in the water, they go wild. They'll start jumping out of the tank. I've had them shoot out of the tank. When I had the Rohanis, same thing. The behavior is the same with all Dickensia genus barbs. They have much the same tendencies. So something about those. So when you say you have them with the other barbs, now I had tiger barbs with them, and I had Odessa barbs with them, and I had the cichlids, the Macula. Now, what I've discovered is that, some of the Macula, they were just too slow, and the barbs just took out all the food so quick. And I didn't want to keep throwing food in there, because then I'm going to get overfed, fat, lazy mascara barbs. So I was very hesitant to overfeed them, just to try to feed a few Macula. So I ended up taking the max out. I got them in a tank over here in the back, right there. That's them right there. And I got a pair in there. We're going to put them in a breeding pen. And we have, on this case, the right now our tank we were just looking at with our Apsara barbs are actually by themselves. Well, there's one single pleco in there, and there's one single Denisoni, which seems to be it's from the same. It's also an Indian barb of the same genus, they say, and gets along with them. But apart from that, I took out the other fish. Not so much because they don't make good community fish. They do. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to set up some breeding, and I don't want the other fish to come in and start eating the eggs when they go into breeding mode. I've seen this with my black spot barbs. They'll start breeding, and they just start breeding, and everybody in the tank knows that the fish are breeding, because the males are chasing the females and they're doing all this, right? And so the problem is, as soon as they start spewing out the eggs, all the other fish start eating caviar. So I don't want those eggs to be gobbled up by bystanders. So that's why I removed them. That's the only reason why I removed them. The Rohanis go to a friend or to the retail? Well, the Rohanis, what did I do with those? I think well, see, to tell you the story about the Rohanis, I went to Fanatics a couple years ago, and they had mascara barbs, and I was so excited, and I bought 30 of them. I was like, we're going to get a good start in these mascara barbs. They were young, and when I got them, I brought them home, and the mascara barbs I had, I just gobbled them up. They weren't cheap either, and I just took them, 30 of them. It was about half of this tank. And when I got them home, I started looking at them for the following few weeks, and I started realizing, it's like, wait a minute. Rohani barbs don't have black spots in the lobes of their tail. Rohani barbs have just a red tail. They're like red tail, like a red tail tinfoil. And so that's one of the distinguishing characteristics that make them different. And so these mascara barbs transformed overnight when I realized I bought a bunch of Rohani barbs. So I mentioned it to the owner of the store. He says, you know, you sold me Rohani barbs under the guise of being mascara barbs. And of course, it's always the same reply. Well, that's what they were sold to me as. Well, what am I going to do? They weren't what I wanted. But then I stopped and thought about it, and it was my fault because I just assumed. And when I got them, I just assumed that they were what they are because the sign said, and they were talking about, yeah, these are mascara barbs and blah, blah, blah. But I learned so much since then. There are two kinds of mascara barbs. They're both called mascara barbs. One is the Asamilis and one is the Apsara. They were differentiated a few years ago, the two kinds. They are definitely different, and I've had both. The Asamilis is a beautiful fish, but not quite as nice as the Apsaras. The Asamilis is a mascara barb, but it has one of the things you can tell on the dorsal fin is not red, and it's got filaments. The Apsara has no filaments on the dorsal fin. No filaments. And they have a red dorsal fin. And the colors are quite intense. So I learned my lesson. I also can tell the difference, but when they're too young, you can't really tell the difference because they haven't got those features developed yet. So that's an issue, right? So that's what happened to me. So I ended up, and one time I was at a local store and they were selling mascara barbs. I didn't know which ones they were. I bought them. I kept them separate from these, which I got these from, I got these, the ones I have now, the Apsaras. I got them from the United States. I went and crossed the border with them in order to bring them into Canada. And the other ones I got locally, but when you compare them, I started comparing them. They were in two different tanks. Then I could really see the difference, and the filaments started growing, and I knew I had Asamilis, and so I sold those back. I didn't really care about them. I just sold them to the local fish store. It didn't matter. I just wanted to stick with the Apsaras, the nicer ones. So the Apsaras are a beautiful fish, and I'm hoping if we can breed some this year, we're going to make them available all across Canada, and everybody who wants them can get some young ones, especially when you see the adults, when you see the breeders, you know what you're getting, and that's the important thing. Even if you're getting young ones that you can't distinguish, if you know the adults, if you know the breeders, then you know you got some good fish, right? Yeah. So that's the story, and we'll see if we can do it. I've got some minds in my mind. I've got some ideas for some egg traps, and we're going to try to make it a little more automated than what I've had in years past. And instead of just happen to watch them breed and happen to get the eggs out when I happen to, see them spawning, I want to try using a method with a lift tube, and I want to try making it so that I can. Well, we're gonna go into that as time goes on, the months to come. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Stick with the FishEZ and join us for future events, videos, and so forth. If you subscribe, I really would appreciate it. So the answer to the Rouhani question is, eventually, I think I sold them back to the fish shop. I don't think they went to an individual. I would have remembered that. And I think they went back to Fanatics. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great evening, and we've had a number of you, looks like a few more hit the thumbs up. Not everybody, so I guess it wasn't that great of a thumbs up evening. So I'm going to sign off and enjoy my Friday night. And all of you, please have a great weekend. And most of all, enjoy your fish this weekend. Do what you can to get to know them better and to enjoy them. Thank you so much for all you're doing by supporting this channel, and keep it real.